Hey everybody, it's Scott Morgan here from NOFA, New Jersey. You all may know I'm the technical assistance provider for NOFA. I'm here today on Duke Farms. We are going to talk about a little bit of a collaboration that NOFA and Duke Farms are working on with some funding from the Increasing Land Access Grant. We are working on a field of grain. These are oats that are planted in this field. This is a field that was relatively undermanaged. In terms of what we're doing with this grant is we are exploring what it takes to get land that's been out of active production for a while and what it takes to get that land back into a state of readiness for planting cash crops on. This was a field that was being hayed periodically. It was a mix of alfalfa that, well, it had been planted as alfalfa, but it had kind of, evolved over the years. The alfalfa was starting to thin out and it was taking over with some unintentional blend of grasses. So the quality of the hay and the state of the soil and the nutrient density of the soil was starting to deteriorate. So this was an opportunity for us to come in and kind of work through and demonstrate the process of what it takes to get land back into production when it's kind of slipped out a little bit. This soil required some liming to get the pH where we wanted it. More importantly than that, it required liming to get the calcium where it needed to be. It also required, for crop stability, for crop vigor, some just kind of basic NPK. Sadly, what you're looking at is a crop that's really just growing on basically the soil health. This year's world marketplace for fertilizer got a little weird, and our chicken manure, our pelletized chicken manure that was going to be a base for our fertilizer, came in only last week, which is really too late. You can see some of this is starting to already make seed. So if we drive over it with the tractor at this point, we're gonna damage the crop, and it's a little late for the fertilizer to really help change the state of things for this crop. So we're gonna let it go without the fertilizer, and we'll focus that fertilizer on other fields. These oats are gonna continue to grow for another 4 to 6 weeks. The plants will get a little bit taller, those seed heads will develop, they'll flower, they'll produce their full crop of oats. Hopefully we stay mild so that we get good fertilization of the flowers when the plant does that. And these will just be harvested, and we'll see what we get. We'll be able to tell you guys a little bit about that process. So these other fields here at Duke are a little bit rougher. They are going to be used for winter wheat and rye. So we're about to take them out of the grass and invasives that are growing in them, work the soil, apply fertility, and then come October we'll plant that wheat seed. That'll give us a nice window here during the summer to get those weeds and the sod under control, broken down through cultivation, and ready to produce a strong crop. So one of the things that we want to mention with working soils that haven't been in active agriculture for a while, or active cultivation for a while, there are some benefits and drawbacks. I would say the benefits are that this ground, not being cultivated for several years, has developed a robust capacity for nutrient cycling. There's a lot of good soil biology going on just because all the weeds and the perennial plants are continuing to feed the soil microbiome, with perennial roots. So that's a real advantage. The downside is that they are going to require a fair amount of active cultivation. So in this case, the plow or the disc or whichever form of robust primary tillage we choose, there is going to be a downside to soil structure and things of that nature, but it's going to be overcome by the fact that we're going to cover crop, we're going to till, disturb, cover crop, and then till again before we plant that winter crop. So we're going to minimize the amount of time that this soil exists without living roots in it. So we're going to try to mitigate. So this is what we have to do in organic systems instead of, you know, burn down chemicals, right? So you can burn down a crop with glyphosate or various other chemicals, and you can avoid all that aggravation and agitation of the soil, but you still have a degradation of the soil microbiome. It's just in chemical form versus physical form. So being organic, being as close as we are in the watershed to the Raritan River, we want to keep it clean. We've got good buffers around the field so that the disturbance isn't going to create a great deal of erosion or runoff in terms of fine soils into the waterways. And by rapidly replanting these fields with either cover crops or intentional crops, again, minimizing that time that the soil doesn't have roots in it, stabilizing it. So responsible organic tillage, it is the alternative to chemical burn down. And that's what we're going to demonstrate here later this summer. So yeah, it's an individual, not like clumpy roots.
Yeah.
So what we're looking at here, we've got a little patch of ragweed. This is a particularly problematic nuisance weed in the grain crops. This can impart a significantly off flavor to grain crops. Looks fairly similar to mugwort, not quite the same plant. Depending on weed management in this area, we may just have to avoid cutting in an area that has a lot of that weed in it, just to avoid contaminating the crop. If you have a lot, you need to clean it right away to get any green matter out of your harvest come harvest time, before it has a chance to sit and impart that smell. While we're right here, the other thing you'll see is we've got a big patch of thistle. Thistle is probably growing in a slightly compacted or low oxygen environment for the root zone. Some tillage, the application of lime that we put should help to flocculate the soils a little bit and improve the likelihood of crops growing successfully and deter this thistle. This is also going to be where a demonstration in the coming weeks of the weed zapper will hopefully show great efficacy in eradicating these crops. The weed zapper is an electrocution-based weed control system that you guys will see demonstrated out here in the very near future. Thistle will grow in these patches, and it'll grow more and more dense, and it will actually, when it gets bad enough, it will actually it will outcompete the crops, and there'll be no crop in that area where there's thistle. So we would either need to come in with a small mower and mow this down, but in our case, we've got the opportunity to demonstrate the weed zapper, and hopefully that'll take care of it. And if everything works right, the weed zapper will take care of it for good, because that electrocution goes right to the root system and fries the root system. So hopefully that's a one and done. Otherwise, now is the time to kill thistle while it's still before it flowers. This is when it's going to be at its weakest. If we let it go another week or two, it's going to flower and make seed, and then we're a nuisance to our neighbors, and we don't want to do that. So we've got to get rid of this one way or another in a hurry.